Well, we have snow moving through the Northeast tonight, right at showtime, which doesn't happen too often. And we've got a mild Monday ahead before things change again. As we're going into a really active pattern over the next 2 weeks, we have probably four weather systems that are going to be in play. Winter storm warnings are up for a good chunk of the western United States, advisories to the east. There's also some winter weather advisories, which we'll be talking about tonight locally. We'll be doing it here, right, on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which, of course, you can support by shopping our referral link on Amazon, which is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this podcast. It's very simple. Just use the referral link to take you to Amazon and just buy whatever it is you're going to buy. And Amazon sends us back a little present that doesn't cost you a dime. It's an easy, great way to support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And we appreciate very much. And thank you for those of you who have shopped our Amazon referral link. So, we've got snow on the radar and snow reaching the ground in spots. It's a lovely little warm front that is moving through. And once it's done, if you decide not to clear it out, it won't matter because it'll all melt away tomorrow ahead of the cold front.
Yeah, and things are moving along at a very good clip in terms of the propagation, so to speak, of the radar echoes across the immediate tri state area. We're just getting into the steadiest and heaviest of the precip now, Joe, but it looks like by the time we get to 10, 11 o'clock tonight, a good bulk of that will be to our east, and whatever's on the ground is going to be pretty much it as far as the snow accumulations are concerned. Not really too impressed. I didn't even do a snow map tonight. I just simply said that for areas, and this is for the Hudson Valley, solely for the Hudson Valley, if you're south of 287, Yonkers, Mamaroneck, New Rochelle might pick up a coating to an inch. If you're north of 287, up to about the I-84 corridor, anywhere from an inch or two. And if you got to go north of 84, I think, to get into a cold enough air mass so that the snow comes down in a puffy, fluffy manner, so that you might end up with 2 or 3 inches of snow. But again, the movement is going to be the key. It's moving very quickly, and certainly by the time we get to midnight tonight, most, if not all of it, will be over, said and done. So if you're a snow lover, you got to hope that you put down whatever you can put down now through at least 10 or 11 o'clock tonight, because again, after that, it's going to be pretty well over.
Well, I did a snow map yesterday, so while I describe my snow map, you load the radars up, and then you will follow me after this. And
Okay.
I kind of have the same idea that Joe Rayo has. I went for like a coating, maybe a half an inch in the northern part of New Jersey, maybe just a little bit north of 195, a little bit south of Route 78, where the uh, cutoff is. I included Long Island in there because, at least for now, the beginnings of it will be some snow. There might even be some rain that'll mix in along the coast. Depends on whether the cold air hangs on long enough with the wind from the south, which is often at times a struggle for Long Island with the south wind. But yeah, I mean, I basically did the same thing north of 287 and points north, an inch or two in the northern Connecticut, north of Route 84, 2.5. This is one of those situations where it's kind of hard to pick a max point. Is there's going to be pockets that might finish up with two or maybe even three, but they will be the exception. I think the general idea here is a coating to an inch or two. I think that works. What I didn't quite get, however, I'm going to bring up the watches and warnings map, which I thought was kind of interesting, Joe. Uh, I mean, I know why they did it. It's like this, and it's because of the fact that they have new criteria for winter weather advisories. It's got to be for at least 3 inches. So this is why when you look at the map, they have winter weather advisories up for Connecticut, central and western Massachusetts, and I think Rhode Island. Let me double check. I got to get close up here. Um, uh, come on. Right, so Rhode Island. Okay. Then there's nothing for no advisories up for the Hudson Valley all the way up, and then you go north and west up into the Catskills and up through southern and western New York and northern New York and much of north central and northwest Pennsylvania, where you naturally the snows are going to be heavier there anyway. There you have the advisory, but there's a sort of hole in between that kind of stands out. But you know what? Let's lay that aside. Rayo's got the radars tonight, and he's going to take you on a tour. So take him on a tour.
Okay, I will do that. First of all, let me just give my opinion on that. Is the fact that um, if they do have new criteria, even if you pick up a couple of inches of snow, and that no longer qualifies for a winter weather advisory, that I think is a little dangerous. Now tonight, the fact that the snow is going to be ending probably by around midnight means that the road crews and the people who are in charge of clearing away the snows pretty much are going to have it all gone by off many of the main and secondary roadways by the time people head out to work and school tomorrow morning at around 5, 6, 7 o'clock. So really, there will not be any need for an advisory. But on the other hand, I know that a lot of these schools, these districts, always look to the National Weather Service and they say, okay, there's a winter weather advisory. We may have to delay openings tomorrow. So if this were a case where tomorrow morning there was like 2 inches of snow on the ground, but there was no advisory, that doesn't make any sense to me. That because still the roads are going to be, at least the secondary ones, slick and slippery, and school buses are going to need to pick up kids, and in this type of an environment, it'd be better to have a delay. I don't think there'll be a delay in any school district tomorrow because, as I said, the people who are responsible for clearing the snow away will have a good 4, 5, 6 hours to do so after the snow ends. But come that one time when we have 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 inches of snow, if that's not enough anymore or the criteria for advisories to be put up, then I find that to be a bit of a problem. But anyway, enough with my editorial comment. You see on the screens right now the New York City radar, the latest radar. We have had some bands of relatively light snow that has developed just to the west of the immediate tri-state area, the immediate New York City area, and is now moving or making its way across the immediate area. There's one particular band of snow to the north and west coming across western and northern sections of Orange County. That seems to be the area where the snow will be coming down at a rather light to moderate clip. But also notice, Joe, that the movement is rather rapid. It's not going to linger. It's going to go on and through and out. Almost reminds me, well, not like a squall line, but a band of locally, heavy snow showers. And again, once this area that you see here that the cursor is pointing to, once that area moves to the east, aside from maybe some lingering snow showers or flurries, or as my friend I used to work with many years ago at a private weather service, and then later he went on to AccuWeather and WCBS here in New York, Jack Boston, he would say, that's nothing but dibbly squat, Joe, dibbly squat. And that's really what we're going to have probably after 9 or 10 o'clock. Still some snow in the air, but it's going to be dibbly squat in terms of adding anything significant to what has already fallen. So again, within the next hour or two, if you're a snow lover, this is your time to hope for getting some kind of an accumulation. But after that, it's going to be winding on down, and I think it's going to be pretty much over for everybody by about 11, 12 o'clock tonight. But you see here on the radar, and let me just expand this a little bit, make it a little bit bigger so that you can see the whole screen here. This is from Upton, and you can see that rather rapid movement. Let's go up to Albany and show you that they're showing you basically the same thing. Here's that area that we're watching associated with that warm front. Everything is moving on a rather significant rapid progressive clip from west to east. Now, from Albany, it doesn't appear quite as significant or as heavy further south over in Orange County as it does closer to the radar, closer into the radar. I'd like to show you uh, Philadelphia, but Philadelphia, apparently the radar there out of commission for the moment. So I'm going to move over to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. And there you see that one zone of green, which indicates light to moderate, now falling over southeastern Pennsylvania. And again, everything moving along at a pretty good clip. Let me see if I can get something from uh, let's see, South Jersey. Well, we just looked at that. Let's see what else there might be. Unfortunately, let's go to Boston. Boston is a little bit too far to the east to show much of anything significant, although there is one band here moving across central Connecticut and into western Massachusetts. That's out ahead of the zone that we're watching for New York. And again, everything moving along very quickly from west to east. And again, even here, this area that you see over Massachusetts now, within a couple of hours, that's going to be moving off the coast east of Boston. So Boston, you'll probably pick up a little bit of snow too. Hasn't started there yet, but it will over the next hour or two, and it'll be in, and again, very quickly, it will be out. Just want to show you further out to the west. We heard about the latest bit of precipitation that's hitting California. This is Beale Air Force Base in Northern California. You can see that there is some moderate, light to moderate rain, and even looks like what appears to be some kind of a narrow band of rainfall here. And again, this is the latest atmospheric river, if you will, that is hitting in from the Pacific coast. Let's see if I can get San Francisco. And this area of rainfall that's hitting the west coast is even more to the north of San Francisco. So this is not Southern California. This is north of San Francisco, closer up toward the Pacific Northwest, I guess. Here is Medford in Oregon, and you can see a lot more in the way of rainfall from the borderline of Northern California with Southern Oregon. And all of that, again, progressing at a pretty good clip from west to east. Anywhere else you'd want to go, Joe? Or
No, I think you pretty well covered it.
okay,
All right. Welcome tonight to everybody on the chat board, and to those of you watching in the background. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. And if there's storminess around, we'll do the occasional Friday and Saturday, and we'll certainly let you know about it ahead of time. Subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. If you like the show, hit the like button, because we love it when we get over 100 likes. We're already at 67, so maybe we'll be able to do it early. And I know a few of you have mentioned about, that you want me to talk about the stupid rodent. We'll get to that, and among other things. Back to the watches and warnings. There's a strip of winter weather advisories from northern Michigan going back through parts of southern North Dakota and northern South Dakota. And then you get into a very large area of winter storm warnings covering much of central and western Montana, central Idaho, western Wyoming, eastern counties of Idaho, a couple of counties in northern Utah, southern Oregon, and also into northern California and down the Sierra Nevada mountains. We have winter storm warnings that are up, and a lot of high wind warnings up in northern Nevada as well as in southern Wyoming, as we continue to see for the first time really this entire winter, where we've had a very strong moist Pacific flow coming in and bringing in precipitation to the west coast. And on the satellite loop, you can see it pretty well. It's a pretty solid band of bright white clouds there off the Pacific, and just coming in from southwest to northeast and pouring up into the northern Rockies. There's cold air from Canada that's wedged back up into the northwest, so you're going to see some hefty snow amounts up there. And then, of course, you see the lead system. This is actually a warm front. The low is up in Canada. There's a trailing cold front behind it that's going to probably come through sometime tomorrow evening or tomorrow night in the northeast and mid-Atlantic states. There'll be very little with it as it goes by, which will leave us tomorrow in much of the Northeast and down through the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast, actually, in some rather mild to warm weather conditions. They're going to see some 70-degree readings popping up in Georgia. We got to the low 60s today here in North Georgia, and we could certainly get higher than that over the next couple of days. I'm kind of looking forward to it because January here was was very cold. I mean, it really was very cold. We had 4 inches of snow for the month. So it was an interesting month indeed. The cold was very persistent, which was unusual compared to the last couple of Januaries here. And here's the wide view of the radar. Joe took you through all the what's going on in the east. Give you the wider patch here. Looks like there's more snow in upstate New York and going into central and southern New England, and then there's a sort of a southern band here. Jason Schaefer on the chat board says he's already got sleet in southern Nassau County, and that's the south wind coming in off the relatively warmer ocean. We've got some snow up in southern North Dakota and northern South Dakota into southern Minnesota, and then busy radars out in the west. There's a big batch of heavy rain that has just moved in to the coast of Northern California, and of course, when it gets into the mountains up down there or out there, uh, it turns to snow, and we have it also extending into southern Oregon, and you see the areas in Idaho and over into Montana and Wyoming. Some patchy showers of rain and snow in western Washington and northwestern Oregon. The there's nothing on the Storm Prediction Center with regards to thunderstorms, so we'll go right to WPC. And the next 7 days worth of precipitation, including tonight's, which is really going to be relatively minor. But we're looking at 3/4, actually about an inch and a quarter to an inch and a half total over the next 7 days, because we have two weather systems that follow this one and heavier precip in the central Appalachians and into the Ohio Valley, where we're looking at an inch and a half to maybe as much as 2.5 to 3 inches of melted precip. And a lot of this is in an area, by the way, particularly in West Virginia, southeastern Ohio, southwestern Pennsylvania, that is under extreme drought. So the moisture there for them is definitely a good thing. And you see the loaded moisture in California, where we're talking about 10 inches or more in the Sierra Nevadas. And even along the coast, we're talking about several to 6 inches or more, down to about San Francisco, and even some rain down to LA on the order of 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half. So it is it's an ample amount. And as far as the snow goes, let me bring up the latest snow forecast from the National Weather Service. And you can see in the Northeast from this warm front, we're looking at some 3 and 4 inch amounts in New England and up into Maine, a little bit higher in northern Maine, some places up to a foot there. Also, we've got a couple of few inches in western New York and in northwestern Pennsylvania. Going west, we're looking at a band of 6 inch snows in that winter weather advisory band I showed you, northern Michigan through northern Wisconsin, cutting across Minnesota from Minneapolis northward and heading through the Dakotas. And then you get into these big numbers where you're looking at up to several feet. There's a 58, I don't know what that is, but there's a 58 print there in some mountaintop there in on the Wyoming-Montana border, and a 45 just south of there. And then going to the west coast in the Sierra Nevadas, you're looking at double-digit amounts there. In fact, out of curiosity, I got to find out what that peak is, Joe. 148 inches is forecast. Um, I'm-
And what did they issue a winter weather advisory for that? I
well,
hope.
no, there's a winter storm warning.
Okay.
I just don't know where that is. So let's see if I can guess. Let me try that. So let's go a little bit. Near Mount Shasta, where it's raining. So the forecast for Shasta is um, 2 to 4 inches for the rest of the afternoon, 6 to 10 tonight, 10 to 14 tomorrow, 6 to 10 tomorrow night, 7 to 11 on Tuesday, 2 to 4 Tuesday night, 1 to 2 on Wednesday, and they also are forecasting it to go partly sunny for a little while. And then snow likely Thursday, snow heavy at times Friday, I'm sorry, Thursday, heavy at times Thursday night, heavy at times Friday. On and on it goes. Oh, by Saturday, chance of snow, mostly sunny, and then mostly clear after that. So basically, it snows all week. If you want snow, go to Mount Shasta. You'll get all the snow that you could possibly want. All right, so a couple of things are going on, and I mentioned this last week, so I think we'll just check it front and center. I think the next 3 weeks, Joe, is going to be a battle between uh, the polar vortex and what it does, to between that and the Madden-Julian oscillation and what it does. So here's the graphic of the Madden-Julian oscillation, which is now in its warm phase, one of the warm phases. It's in phase 5, and it's forecast to go into phase 6 in the next couple of days. But then it goes to where the boundary is for the neutral zone and kind of stays there for the next 2 weeks. It sort of loops on top of itself. That's that green line. All right. So let's make the assumption that it's in the phase of 6, which is a warm phase. I would point out that December, it was in phase 6 for much of the month of December, and we actually got 2 snow events out of it. We had small snow events, but we did get 2 snow events out of it. So there's that. Uh, I think during as I remember with the month of December, we saw stretching of the polar vortex, and every time it stretched, we got into some pretty cold air masses. The problem was that the cold air masses didn't really sustain themselves. That changed in January when we went into phase 8, 1, and 2. Okay, so that provided us into an environment with its sustained cold. However, for you MJO fans, it really didn't do any good overall as far as snow is concerned for the area in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. It was great for the mid-Atlantic states. It was great for the Southeast, and it was wonderful for snow lovers along the Gulf Coast who saw historic snowfalls there, but it didn't do you any good. You can look at these things, by the way, just to remind everybody, because I know there are some of you who just are so fixated on one thing and say, okay, this thing says this, so it absolutely has to be that. Okay. And I'm gonna just tell you, it doesn't work that way. Okay. There are just too many variables in the weather world that are important. And sometimes they all coincide and sometimes they don't. So you just have to, you know, to me, that's not, to just kind of look at one thing and make a forecast over it that's not forecasting. To me, that's just being silly. So, that's my never to be humble opinion on that. So, ah, got to
We got
100.
100. We're at 100.
So, the polar vortex right now is in kind of a circular, ballish shape. It's not a perfect balled up shape, but it's close. Once again, it's going to stretch. And this time around, as we saw last week, excuse me, the models were indicating a split. And indeed, it continues to come in about 7 days or so. We have the polar vortex splitting in two. Now, depending on what run you look at, I'm going to go back to the 12Z run. The 12Z run splits the polar vortex in two and keeps it split for the rest of the forecast period. One of those centers drops down into eastern Canada. It actually drops down all the way into southern Hudson Bay, which I find rather interesting. And the other one kind of migrates towards Siberia and then pops back out into the open waters of the Arctic. So we're going to have a very unstable polar vortex in the stratosphere. So that's going to shake things up a bit. So I think, you know, one of these things is going to have at times a more of an influence on the day-to-day weather than the other. So I guess if you're, if you're a winter weather lover, you're going to want the polar vortex to win this battle. The other thing is that's going to happen is if it does split, regardless of what the Madden-Julian oscillation is concerned, because that's a Indian Ocean thing, but the splitting of the polar vortex would imply that we will go into a negative North Atlantic oscillation, NAO. But I also want to caution everybody that if you remember back in January, we had a long stretch in there where the NAO was negative, and what happened? It was too strong, and everything passed south, and nothing turned up the East Coast because the Atlantic jet stream was like a ruler from west to east. So as always, you have to be careful what you wish for, and again, there's and Joe, you would agree with me. I mean, these are all wonderful things that we look at and trying to gain a clue as to what the weather is going to be, the general weather trend is going to be. But none of them is like the definitive one that you can point to every time and say, okay, this is doing this, therefore it's going, this is so that's going to be the outcome. Then there's no other option.
Yeah, I would agree. And I've said on more than one occasion that sometimes it's best not to go much beyond 5 days when you look at, and I saw already a few people saying, well, the latter part of this month, it's going to be, especially looking at the GFS and the European, it's going to be an absolutely snow filled situation, more snow than we have seen in such a long, and I'm shaking my head and I'm saying to myself, come on, please, don't, sometimes, sometimes, and we have seen this on more than one occasion over the last 5 or 6 years, sometimes a major snow event pops up on the radar and into view within like 2 or 3 days of the actual event. We didn't see it 5 and 6 days out. We didn't see it a week out. But all of a sudden, within like 2 or 3 days, hey, where did that come from? Hey, look at that. Hey, and before you know it, you've got 4 to 8 or 6 to 10 inches on the ground. So that's the way the game is played sometimes in the winter season. Now, for what it's worth, from the, as Paul Harvey would say, from the what it's worth department, here is the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center, Joe. Now, you have been talking about, a polar vortex and how it's stretching and how things are unstable and whatever like that. From the standpoint of the people who specialize in long range forecasting at CPC, they are suggesting
You mean like
that.
the CPC who said January was going to be above normal? Just
Hey,
I'm
all
asking for
I'm,
I'm asking for a friend.
all right. All I'm saying is these are the people who we rely on for looking out long range. And they are saying,
Huh.
and this forecast was issued, as you can see, last Friday, January 31st. So this is a pretty recent outlook for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Whoops, hang on. Here we go. They're saying that basically from the northern plains and northern Rockies out to the Pacific Northwest, that is where you will find during the second half of February below normal temperatures, the probability for below normal temperature conditions. However, for I would say about 60% of the country across the desert southwest, Texas, the southern plains, into the southeast, mid Atlantic, and all the way up into southern New England, there is above normal probability for temperatures, milder than normal temperatures. Now, of course, what we'd like to see if you're a snow lover or winter weather lover is that this area here in the plain states is a bit stronger and penetrates more to the south and east so that it moves into the Great Lakes and the northeastern states by mid and late month. That still may happen. Again, these 3 to 4 week temperature outlooks are, in their own way, rather uncertain. But that's what CPC is looking at for this part of the country, milder than normal conditions, or at least near normal to milder than normal conditions for the latter half of February. We'll see. Now, for those of you who are curious about precipitation forecast, their precipitation outlook. This is interesting. They are saying that there's going to be above normal precip across the Ohio Valley and the lower Great Lakes, above normal into, although not as prevalent, into southern New England, New York State, below normal for the Florida Peninsula, below normal across southern Texas and parts of the desert Southwest, and also above normal precip over in the Pacific Northwest. Now, maybe, Joe, I know that the temperatures are supposedly in this zone right here above normal, but if you look at this from the standpoint of near normal or even maybe slightly below normal temperatures, maybe this area in late February or the second half of February, the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes may end up with heavier than normal snowfall. Whether or not that will pertain also to the Northeast, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Well, look, regardless of what what's being said long range, I kind of laid it out what I think, uh, the battle between the two of them. One of the interesting things to me, and Mr. Tolerus is on the chat board tonight, and, if you want to come on, I sent you the Zoom link. So I'd be curious about your opinion about all this. So, if we you notice, we've got these systems that are coming into the west, which is we did not see this all through January. So now we're suddenly getting the Pacific to start sending in systems into California and into the western part of the United States. So over the next number of days, we're going to start to see that energy come in, and it's a series. It's going to be one after another after another. While all that's happening, we have cold air spreading out across southern Canada, particularly central and western Canada, and it gets into the plains and Great Lakes, and some of it gets into the Northeast, which it will do. This warm front goes by. Tomorrow's going to be warm with a west southwest wind. You'll probably see temperatures well into the 40s and low 50s, maybe even some higher numbers as you go down in southern New Jersey and point south. Front goes by Monday night, not much with it. Then we turn colder for Tuesday and Wednesday. And that sets up this next weather system that's going to be coming east. You see that low in northern Missouri. Kind of takes a similar track as the one did on Friday, where it goes up across the northern parts of the Ohio Valley. So there could be a little snow at the start, going over to some sleet and freezing rain, and then ending as rain as that slides out. Then colder air comes in behind it. Here comes the next energy heading east. This one is a little further south for a Saturday. There's a low in southern Missouri, and it takes a track through southern Ohio and southern Indiana and Ohio. And you'll notice the European brings what looks like a pretty solid front end of snow come Saturday afternoon and evening. That changes over to sleet and freezing rain, and then it just ends. And then that goes out. And then you still have higher pressures all across from the Great Lakes and the Northern Plains all the way back up into Canada. It's the negative East Pacific Oscillation in play. So now you got another low, and this one comes out even further south. And that is around February 12th that you see snow in Oklahoma and Missouri, and rain down through Arkansas down to Louisiana, with a low from there that moves northeast. And that one brings snow, you know, not all the way up, but maybe up to about Boston. Now, look, obviously this is going to change. But one of the things I noticed, Joe, the last 3 or 4 days, there's been a remarkable consistency in the model runs. It really hasn't varied very much, even in the long range, from run to run and from day to day to day. Yeah, it's different in some ways, but the general flavor of it has been remarkably similar on every run. I thought that was kind of interesting. And by the way, at the end of the period, the European is actually very cold. It's got a big Arctic dump that comes uh, in after Valentine's Day. I mean, it's got a 498 thickness coming into New York. I mean, this is brutal air if it were to verify. So it's a very interesting pattern. I think there's potential here, depending on how much cold air. And again, is the polar vortex going to be so disrupted that you're going to be able to get enough cold air to push far enough south? as these systems move across? I think that's the big question going forward. I don't know what the answer is, and we're not going to know what the answer is until we, get inside 5 days, as you like to say. So there's that. I mean, I kind of think it's a very interesting and potentially exciting or busy weather pattern. And I just want to take a quick look here at the ensemble European EPS, which I really haven't looked at very much. I mean, it's a cold look here. If the ensemble EPS is correct, we're gonna, it certainly suggests that the polar vortex idea is going to win out over time because eventually you get, more troughing. You got a big upper low in Hudson Bay. I mean, this kind of looks like what we had in January by the time we get to the middle of the month. So there's potential here, folks. We're just gonna have to wait and see how it all plays out in the coming days. But we've got weather systems to look at, which I think is really important. We've had these long stretches where we haven't had too much to talk about. I much rather have stuff to talk about than not talk about.
Well, we have two systems after tonight. The one that is coming in for Wednesday night into Thursday, and I already told my kids who are teachers. I said I think you guys are going to have a delay on Thursday morning because even though we have the potential, Joe, really a bust factor, if you will, in terms of possible temperatures here on Thursday. I've seen a lot of forecasts suggesting, temperatures are going to be close to 50. I'm not quite sure if we have cold air damming on Thursday. It may be tough to get those temperatures much out of the 30s to near 40, at least here in the Hudson Valley. We may go higher than that later in the day, but initially, as the overrunning takes place, we're going to see probably late Wednesday and early Thursday kind of a mixed bag of snow, ice, sleet, rain, which could cause slick road conditions and could put a kink in the morning commute on Thursday. And then next weekend, important because a lot of people will be going out on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday coming up. A lot of people have Super Bowl parties they're going to. Last thing they want to see or hear is this major storm to contend with. If we do have a storm next weekend, it looks like it would be timed out for more like late Saturday night into early Sunday. And hopefully by game time, the storm's effects will be over with and things will be in an improving or clearing mode. But those are the two systems that we'll have to watch for the upcoming week. The one Wednesday night, Thursday, and the next one for next weekend, late Saturday into early Sunday. We shall see. Oh, I see somebody is on the
yes, thank you, Dave.
There he is.
Hey,
how are you?
What's going on? Hey.
I just want to thank you for taking yourself away from your usual porn time and joining us here on the.
Well, there's no football on this weekend, so what the hell?
So I don't know if you caught my little dissertation.
Yes, I did.
And I'm curious as to what you think of what I said.
I think you're insane. No, just kidding.
I know I'm insane.
Now, actually, if you call it the European ensemble for 1 second, like you did on the tropical.
I just did it. I'll bring it back up. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, I wanted to see here. So I have it. Okay, so yeah, if you go back to 240 hours, go to 240 hours. Okay, 240.
Right.
240. Okay. Now, what happens is, actually, if you go to 192 for 1 second. Now you see the big red, brown and purple area in Alaska. Okay, that is the block. Okay, that is what's known as the negative EPO, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation. All right. Now, what happens is, where you have it circled, now what's going to happen is that feature, which we're now in western Alaska, is building eastward towards northwest Canada. Okay, so by the time you get to 240 hours out, what happens is it is now pushed further to the east. And what that does is that forces the trough in the Rockies and in California to come east. And when the trough comes east, the ridge in the southeastern United States gets flattened. So you see one thing got boom, bada bing, bada boom. One thing leads to another, which leads to another.
Right.
So that's, this is why weather is so interconnected. Okay, that's what's going to happen here. The other thing is, look what's going on in Greenland at 240 hours. You see the big brown red area appearing on the north side.
Hold on. I'm going to switch to the North Atlantic view, so this way you can see Greenland a lot better than you can on this one. So
sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan, because you know me, I like, I try to be cooperative. Well, you can see southern Greenland anyway.
Right. Okay. So what happens is that builds into, well, you can also, if you go to the Northern Hemisphere view, you can see it there. Go to the Northern Hemisphere view on the EPS. You can really see it there.
There you go.
Northern Hemisphere, bing. Okay. Now, this is beautiful. You see how the red and purple area in Scandinavia builds towards the north, towards Greenland by 240 hours out.
Yes.
So what happens is these two blocking features are going to merge. They're going to link. Okay? And that's called linkage. Now, when you have that by 300 and 360 hours out, the polar vortex is going to get forced southward. That's why it drops.
And the splitting in the vortex, actually, there was one run yesterday that had the whole upper high kind of went over the Arctic region, and the two vortices were completely split.
Now, I don't know if they're going to actually split or they're just going to elongate. I mean, you can make an argument either way. But the point is that splitting with the elongation causes the EPO to build into Alaska, Northwest Canada, and you get linkage. So what happens is you now have a very strong negative AO and a very strong negative NAO, Greenland block, and the polar vortex is forced southward. Now, the difference here is this. Unlike January, where the air was plunging from Siberia down to Georgia, so you couldn't get any storms on the East Coast, look at that flow over the U.S. That's essentially west to east. You're still getting energy coming into California. That is a stormy pattern because the low pressure areas aren't flying off the coast of Georgia. They're going right across the country.
Right.
Okay. Well, I noticed, and of course, you also have a very strong temperature contrast because unlike January, when the cold fronts are going down to New Orleans and you're getting your snow there, and then Pensacola and Savannah, the cold fronts are going to fall across Oklahoma and let's say South Carolina. Now you have a totally different setup.
The progression that you described going on in the upper air, I think, is what when you look at we looked at the European surface, as each one of these next four storms goes by, by, the tracks go a little further south, a little further south, a little further south, until the fourth one is actually, down in the Gulf states.
Right.
Which, and that's all in response. Obviously, that's in response to what's going on in the upper air.
That's correct.
So
that's
now,
absolutely right.
My other question would be then, and I want to go back to, so the MJO. Now, I have this question. You might know the answer to this. So the way this what do we call this? A graph? I'm not sure. What do we?
Yeah, I just call it the MJO table chart.
Okay, so the chart.
It's called the MJO image, right?
So
yeah. Now, what's different about this is that if you recall the one a couple of days ago, it was going deep into phase 6.
Right.
Okay, and phase 6 is a freaking blowtorch. Okay, that'll cook your eggs in February. Of the 8 different phases in February on the eastern United States, nothing is warmer than phase 6. Nothing. So it's not doing that now. And if you look at the other ones,
we were in phase 6 through the month of December. And and December was not exactly a blowtorch. I mean,
no, that's true. But it was unusual in that regard. Yes,
it wasn't sustained. And my question is, when I look at this, so is there a when you say okay, phase 6 is a blowtorch? All right, I accept that.
Typically, it is. Typically,
but is there a difference if you look at the mean here? If you look at the mean position, where the green line is.
Yes.
It's straddling the neutral zone. So my question is, when the mean or any of those individual models, when they're they're in phase 6, but they're sitting closer to the neutral zone as instead of being out somewhere in the middle of that chart in 6 or on the lower end of that or the upper end of that chart in 6. I mean, is it when you're on the upper end, is that more of a
the further you're
near the neutral zone?
Yeah, the further you are away from the neutral circle, the stronger it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're talking a weak phase 6 here that we're in
well, and
phase.
also what's happened is it's also collapsed because yesterday and the day before it was very strong in the middle of the summer of phase 6. Now it's just by the neutral circle. This is telling me that the other models, the CFS and the European, maybe the Japanese model, they're all correct, and that this impulse is going to go into the neutral circle. And when it goes to the neutral circle, that means it's taking a nap. Nothing's driving it. Okay, but the advantage of it going to the neutral circle is like a bypass because it can pop out any place. And there are indications that in mid-February, it's going to pop out in zone 8. And you get zone 8 in February, and it's just like party time in the USA. So if you like, in the eastern US. So that the phase 8 and phase 1 are really, really favorable for East Coast storms and cold in February. So there are indications going to do that. The European is actually showing that. The European ensemble has many of its members going to phase 8 around February 12th or 15th or something. So, that's a real possibility. We'll have to wait and see because, we're playing catch up here. But the GFS ensemble has been the last to this ball game. It's been the last lady to the dance. The other models are showing it going in neutral circle for several days already. So,
by the way, I was looking yesterday, and I want to look at it again. I'm bringing up the European. These are the weekly temperature anomalies.
Sure.
Starting at 2:52, which is day 11, and ending at hour 9:24, which is what? Day what? 40? 30, 35? 35, right?
Well, 240 hours is 10 days. So, what'd you say, 9?
9:24. So 7:20 is
That's like, 40 days.
40 days. Okay, so it's the model that Noah used. But I was looking at so I guess I wasn't looking at it correctly because I'm seeing now that it's showing, much above normal temperatures here at day 10. Am I on the right map? Temperature anomaly weekly. I mean, much above normal, but then gradually kind of pulling away from that, still above normal.
Yeah, and it pulls out. Yep.
Okay. So that was the 12Z. I want to go. This was the Thursday 12Z. Maybe it was the Monday one that I saw. Let me take a look. No, I must have been looking at something else. Okay, I just wanted to just double check on this, so I didn't look. I don't feel feel too silly. So I kind of think that listen, you've got the Pacific opened up. Energy's going to be coming in. So it's going to be really a question of how much cold air can spread out, and if the European is correct, and also the GFS. That was another thing I thought was really strange. The last 3 or 4 days when I was running through the GFS and the European, they were all remarkably similar, and the runs were not varying much at all. I mean, even through 16 days, they keep showing the same thing. 4 systems moving across. Each one comes in a little further south, a little further south, a little further south.
Now I'm looking at 12.
That don't happen too often.
No, 12 and 18Z look identical.
Yeah.
They look identical. So,
I know it was yesterday. I was like, am I looking at the right run? Am I looking at the same one I looked at before? Did I forget to click on the 18 versus the 12?
There are several. There are several. For those of you out there, for those of you out there who are sick, twisted weather freaks, and you know who you are, okay, that use the Coast Mussolini Bible, the snowstorm book. Okay. Right. One of the things they mention is having, and I'm sure also Joe knows this, both of you Joes know this, having the cold Arctic high to the north, on the eastern Great Lakes, Messina, New York, Watertown, Montreal, what have you. Okay. When you have the polar vortex coming this far south, it acts as if it's a separate cold air supply source. So the high doesn't have to be 1045 millibars. It doesn't have to be 1038. It can be a normal high, but because the vortex is so strong and so cold, it creates its own confluence zone across the New York State. And what happens? So as a result, you end up getting the same impact, and you have a very strong cold air source. So having the vortex coming south like that, it fixes so many problems. Because now you don't have to have a big.
It's like in the winter of 2013, 14, and 14, 15, where every storm temperatures were in the teens. I
Yes.
mean,
And by the way, that was also a positive TNH pattern like we've seen now.
right.
And it was a weak La Nina event, and we had a westerly QBO caused by an oscillation. So that's why I, along with a couple other guys, said this winter was going to be like 2013-14 and 2014-15, which were the last two cold winters in the eastern United States. So I know the Climate Prediction Center was going warm. And look, the fact of the matter is, from now on, you can make every 80, you can say a winter is going to be mild in the eastern U.S. with below normal snowfall, and 85% of the time you will be right for the next 50 years.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
but,
yes.
You know,
I mean, basically, that's pretty much how it works because they don't get it. They're going to get it right much of the time just by playing persistence.
Yeah, and if you look at the data since 2000, last 25 years now, right? There's only been like 6 or 8 cold winters in the eastern U.S. CPC has missed every one of them.
Right.
Every one of them. It's got the other 18 right. So, if you keep saying the same thing over and over again, it's not really forecasting. It's more like repetition.
It's Brooklyn clocks are right twice a day kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it,
Jess Harden, who's part of the southern contingent here, because they were, part of the contingent that was dancing in the streets when was it, a week and a half ago with the ridiculous historic snowstorm along the Gulf Coast, would like to ask your opinion about the implications for the Deep South with this type of pattern. In other words, the shortened version of what I said was, is it going to snow in Alabama again?
In this kind of pattern, if the vortex gets this far south, you have a pretty good shot of getting frozen precipitation, snow, ice, into Tennessee, into North Carolina, northern Alabama, which, don't forget, northern Alabama has a pretty nice elevation. It's not this, you go decent elevation there. So yes, that's possible. Will it go down the Gulf Coast in this pattern? No, that I don't see. Not in this pattern. No. You need a deep trough from the east.
But he's not down at the Gulf Coast. He's up south, just south of Birmingham. So you don't have to go.
Yeah, no, he's got possibilities. It's not out of the question.
He's got his birthday coming up at the end of the month. So he wants to get snow, for his birthday.
Well, I'll tell you what. If he wants the good snow forecast, he should send me some money. No, just kidding. Just joking. Just joking.
Joe's going to stay with us because Joe's going to do set up for Briller Jeopardy because you have it. And I just want to say Lakeville 458 SCM and Brandon Doherty both hit the Super Chat tip jar tonight. Thank you so much to both of you for doing that. Let's see. We get Tolerus involved in this. Let's see how he does.
Okay, well, let me find it first of all. I think it was sent to me a few days ago, actually. And I'm going to go back to Facebook and go back to Messenger. And just hang on here. Where are you? Oh, there you are, Scott. All the way down there. All right, so, yeah, this was sent to me back on Wednesday. Brother Jeopardy, average, I want to make sure this is right. Yeah, it's Wednesday was January, now we're in February, but average snowfall in January for the following cities. Average January snowfall, starting with Providence, Rhode Island, gentlemen.
Average January snowfall for Providence, David. Don't cheat.
Let's see here. Well, I know what Boston is. I know what Albany is. Let me think here. Average 25 inches for the month. Just for the month?
No, just the month of January.
Just for the month of January. 20 inches.
For Providence?
Yeah.
Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Well, William Huber said 13, Joe. Mike Waterhouse Bonsai said 10. And Miss Fallerite said 9. What say you, Mr. Rayo?
I say that the magic number is 10.
10. Okay.
10 inches for Providence in January.
Next question.
How about Richmond, Virginia?
All right, yeah, that's your head. What's the normal January snowfall for Richmond in January?
0.5. No, it's like a 4 or 5 inches. It's like for Richmond. Okay, not me. I'm south of Richmond. 5 inches.
All right. Well,
Four.
John Melander said 3. Vincent Croce said 1. Jason Fox said 2. So what say you, Mr. Rayo?
I say that William Huber was right because he had the exact number 4. 4 inches in January.
Yeah.
That's for William Huber. How about
Next.
Rochester, New York?
Rochester, New York for January.
Jeez. They get a lot of snow up there. My God. So, well, some years they do anyway. The average.
There's a silence here.
25 inches.
All right, I'm going to say I'm going to say 27.
All right, I'm at 25.
Oh, this is going to ring the bell.
Bell ring for Joe. 27.
Also, my birth date is 27. Just passed.
How about Seattle?
Oh, Seattle.
3 inches.
I'm going to say. I want to say either 1 or 2, so I'll say 1.
You guys were surrounding it.
Oh, so that means that Jeffrey Beaver is correct, and Vincent Croce at 2.
And Rich Rosmansky as well with 2. 2 inches.
And a few others, too.
Yeah, 2 inches is right.
Next.
How about Virginia Beach? Virginia Beach.
1 inch.
Yeah. I'll say 1.1 without going over.
He just wants to kick the win.
Well, a lot of people are saying 1. Vincent Croce is much closer with 2. Rich Rosmansky for a change is way off with 5.
The thing is that over the last 20 years, Virginia Beach has actually had more 6-inch snowfalls than Richmond.
Right.
But Vincent Croce gets it. And so does House Bonsai with 3.
3.
See? You would think that Virginia Beach and Richmond would have some differences, but it's only an inch apart.
And the final?
The bonus, and this should be for you, Joe. Blairsville, Georgia.
Where? Oh, Blairsville.
Oh, for me?
Blairsville, Georgia.
For me? He's got a normal number for me?
Yes.
Well, I know Blue Ridge, the average snowfall, I think for the average seasonal snowfall is like 11 or 12. So, I mean, I've been here now 4 years. I had 4 inches this month, and that's the most I've had in any month that I've been here. I'll say, see now, and where I am at my house, I'm higher than the airport by 600 feet. And then Brasstown Ball, which is Georgia's highest peak, is 10 minutes from my house, and that's at 5,000 feet. And it's like Massachusetts up there. I'm going to say 3 for January.
Well, let's see. Maggie P says 4. Vincent Croce 6. Boy, you people are very generous. Norm Roberts 7. Latex Dreams 3. 4 from Mike Waterhouse Bonsai. Way off Gary Crosby with 12. And the answer is 1.
Yeah, that's at the airport. You know, there's a lot of differences here from where the airport is because it's in a valley and where everybody else is with like me.
Yeah, we got that. We got a problem in Richmond too. The airport is 10 miles east of the city and like 150 feet lower elevation. So it's same problem here. Done.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I'm by myself right now, so I'm going to take the dog out. So I'm going to sign off a little early.
Actually, no, I think we're done because it's getting very close to my bedtime.
Okay.
Let me one last thing. So the Delaware Valley guy, Brandon.
Yes.
He asked me about whether or not I use the actual maps of the 50th percentile in making my snow predictions. When I'm in the extended range, I'll use the percentiles or the probabilities of getting, let's say, over 4 inches or 3 inches or 8 inches. But once I get within, let's say, 36 or 40 hours, the probabilities become more confusing. So then I become more deterministic.
Okay.
So I have enough faith in the operational models, the NAM, the European, the GFS, the Canadian, some other models, the RGEM, to use them deterministically, Brendan. So I use percentiles and probabilities, beyond, 60 hours, 72 hours out. Just want to get a feel of what the range is going to be like, as opposed to, and then when we get within the short term, then I switch to deterministic. So hopefully, yeah. Brandon, that answered the question.
I kind of do the same thing when when I do my early call. I'll look at. I usually look at where the 40 to 50% line is for 2 inches or for 4 inches, and use that as my my guide. I don't follow it exactly, but I kind of use that as my guide. And yeah, when we get inside that last 24 hours where you make the final call, then I start to then I really go deep into the into the models and see at that point at least the snow maps are kind of useful. They just do the math for you.
Right.
It makes it easy. You just got to remember to figure your ratios in there. But
yeah,
that certainly that makes a whole lot of sense. David, thank you. By the way, thank you for the. I know it was last minute, but as I always say, you are always welcome here. And
well, I was looking at the data earlier, and I made a big post on the Facebook page and a big post on the Twitter page and on the Blue Sky page. So I'm looking at it. I'm getting. I want to make certain that the pattern is going to flip into something significant. So I was a little later than some other people who jumping on it, but there's no doubt about it. This thing's going to flip. No doubt about it.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks again to Lakeville 458 SCM and for Delaware weather guy Brandon Doherty, who's got his Delaware Guy Facebook weather page. Thank you both for hitting the tip jar, and we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Bye-bye.
All right. See you guys. Bye, everybody.